love your karma, be the blessing. We are a puzzle, a blessing puzzle. It's like a jigsaw puzzle, and can become a blessing to ourselves and to others. The pieces of the puzzle are our karma. There are qualities, our likes, our desires, our yearnings, our aversions, the good things and the bad things. These pieces include what we like, what we don't like, what we want to do, what we don't, the people we're attracted to, the people we want to stay away from. When we look deeper into these pieces show us who we are, our blessings, our spiritual gifts, our soul contract, and even our past lives. It is a cosmic game that we have to put this puzzle together. And part of the game is there is a blessing in each piece. And part of the game also is the part of us that we seem to focus on a lot doesn't understand what the puzzle is. So it's like every part of us, inside of us, everything outside of us, God inside of us, God outside of us, knows the puzzle. But our conscious mind does not know the puzzle. So we have to figure out how to put this puzzle together without really knowing what it is to create this blessing that we are. Usually we end up putting the puzzle together in the ways we're told to by our parents, by our teachers, by the pressures of money, by the pressures of what we think we have to do. And this is not about that. This is about learning to love all the pieces we like, pieces we don't like, and how it comes together almost automatically to this be the blessing. So it is easy to love the parts that we like. It is not always so easy to love the parts that we don't like. But this is about learning that within each of those parts that we don't like, there are positive qualities. There are clues to our soul contract. There are clues to our past lives that make us who we are in this day. When I look back, I started to have inklings of this when I was in high school. I was introduced to certain books like Autobiography of a Yogi, and even a book. I was a total jock, so even books about sports, particularly the inner game of tennis, that were starting to get me to think that there is something inside of me that was more than I understood who I was, and that there was something very magical in there. I was still really avoiding the blessings, or me possibly being the blessings, because I would have never thought that. I was brought up, definitely you don't think that. And part of my journey in trying to find myself outside by looking, in all sorts of things, a lot through sports, but, some spiritual books here and there, was I moved out to California. The big sky, the mountains, it was kind of a place where people seem to go to find out about those things. One time I came back east to visit my parents, and I came with my roommate who was also from the area, and we drove back in his car. We heard about a party that night that a high school friend was having. So we decided to go. We were going to meet there. I took my mom's car, and he drove his car there. We were there drinking, dancing, having fun. And the young lady who had the party, I had always felt a connection with in high school. So I decided to mock up being more drunk than I thought I was, so I could ask my friend for a ride home and come back the next day and be able to ask the young lady out. About halfway back to my parents' house, I remembered my sister needed the car to go to work the next day. So I asked my friend to drive me back to the party. He protested, but I explained I wasn't really that drunk, or I thought I wasn't, and he drove me back. I remember leaving the party, and then the next thing I remember was I was out of my body in the white light, floating above my damaged body that was leaning against a tree. There was a police officer kneeling over me. I assume he pulled me out of the car. I never verified that. And even though I saw my head smashed open, and obviously I looked like I was not alive, everything seemed so perfect. Even though I didn't have a physical body, it was almost like having an energy body. It felt so warm and so loving, and it was like all my questions that I ever crossed my mind in my life were answered. And I've learned to really describe it really like there were no questions, because just everything made total sense. And in what seemed like either, what seemed like a very long time or no time at all, again, it's very hard to describe. It's because the references at the physical level were not there. I heard a voice say that was behind me, and even though I was facing this way, I could see what was behind me. There was a big white light like this, and then there was a shape of a human being in a white light with like emanating light coming off it with a little bit of gold in there. And that little human shape said to me, "You have to go back. Your father wants you to stay." Since it seemed like I knew everything, or was tapped into how everything was so good, I went back into my body right away and woke up 3 days later in the hospital. When I came to, I didn't really tell anyone about my experience because it was back in those days where people were not talking about this thing. But I started to notice a change in me. And in one way, it was a continuation of what was going on before. It's just now I could not deny it. So when I look at it, it was during my near-death experience, my puzzle was put together in the right order. And I could not deny that that's what that was. Even though once I was back in my body, I was trying to deny what that was, because the thing of being sensitive, the qualities of being nurturing, these qualities that, talking to spiritual people, you think of those as good qualities. I was not brought up to be that way as a man, and it was hard to integrate that into my life. But something really shifted in me where I needed to know. I needed to know about what happened after we die. I needed to know what happened in spirit. And the world seemed to be, against my will, lining up with this happening. One thing that did happen, after my near-death experience, my mother convinced me to move back east. And one day I was sitting in my apartment and someone knocked on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, but it was before cell phones were happening, so people might just show up without calling ahead. And this beautiful woman was at the door that I did not know who she was, and she explained to me that she was the sister of a friend of mine that I knew in Colorado. And she had heard some interesting things about me and wanted to connect. So I invited her in, we started talking, and in our conversation, she explained to me that she did some spiritual studying, and part of it was learning about what happened after we die. And she started to talk to me about this Sufi sheikh that she had learned a lot of that from. As soon as she mentioned this to me, I knew this guy had information that I wanted. And it was great. It was a good thing Spirit was watching out for me, because I sort of wanted to know, but I was sort of hiding this stuff, and I did not know what to do. So it was just very cool that someone just knocked on my door with this information. And so I ended up meeting the Sufi sheikh, and he had a near-death experience. A lot of people that studied with him did. And I learned a lot about, we would study the Tibetan Book of the Dead and more old traditional books that would talk about dying, even things in the Bible. And it was very interesting because he was Islamic. Sufism is really is the mystical sect of the Islamic religion. I was born in a Jewish family, but he started talking to me right away about Mary and Jesus. And he would also always say, "I'm not really your teacher, but we will find your teacher." And like many things, he didn't explain even what that meant, but But when he started to talk to me about the love that Mary had for God, that opened her up to the Christ energy to come in, it was just like something inside, like it is now, started like tingling, and I knew that was the love that I felt during my near-death experience. When he started to talk about Jesus, again, another, I just like tingled inside, and it was just like an awareness, and it was like, oh, that was the being that behind me was Jesus. And, those words came after my experience, but still today when I say that, I connect into that energy. And even right now, I could easily close my eyes and just float into that place. So it was great to meet that person. And I just started meeting more and more people like that. And, I spent a couple of years studying with the Sufi sheikh, and then I stopped. He moved. I would travel around the United States some, but he sort of stopped being a very active teacher and sort of went into retirement. So let's see. I'm going to just check in my notes here to see. So as I mentioned, some of the pieces of my puzzle were being sensitive, being nurturing, being caring, which definitely back in those days were not qualities men were really taught to do. And so, I had a lot of learning and stuff, and at the time I was in a family electrical contracting business, that I was really trying to, use the spiritual principles that I learned, but it was hard because it is not a place for some of those qualities that are essential qualities to me. So over the years, I've had many experiences pushing me in the direction, showing me the pieces of my puzzle that I was in denial about as I was younger. I wish I could say I completely embraced every piece of my puzzle, but it seems to be an ongoing experience. One of the probably the most rewarding and the hardest and the biggest teaching situation I've been in is being a parent. And one of my experiences about embracing the different pieces of your puzzle happened when my now teenage daughter, when she was very young, she liked to hit. And, it was cute if she would hit puzzles and pillows and stuff. And it was kind of cute when she would hit people because she was this very cute little girl with blonde hair and blue eyes. And it was innocent. She couldn't hit anyone. But as a parent, I was a little concerned about that. And I knew from my studies that a lot of times little kids hit when they're not getting hugged enough. I couldn't imagine that be the case because I'm a very touchy-feely, huggy kind of guy. But I tried to make sure I was hugging her enough, and it didn't seem to really have an effect on her stopping the hitting. So I realized this must be one of the karmic pieces of her puzzle, and now how do I learn to embrace that? I basically started looking for martial arts schools near me that would teach 2-year-olds, and I found one. I personally, that's not my way to go and don't really like hitting people or anything like that, but I knew that was for her, and I brought her to these classes, and after about 2 weeks, she stopped hitting people. And it became, another part of it was when she got old enough to where she could be in matches and she would get hit, she didn't want to do it anymore, which I was glad about. And, even during that process, part of me was going to, what if this is, what if her karma is to do violent things? And I'm glad that didn't happen. It ended up segueing into doing Aikido, which is a very peaceful martial arts. It's more about defending yourself. So it, and I've learned to do this with my clients. Sometimes I have kids come see me that are having similar problems, kind of almost obsessing about things, but learning that within there is an energy, there is a drive that is the blessing, that is our blessing, that there's part of it that we can look at. So as I was saying, when I was in my dad's construction business, and it was great for making money, but it was not A lot of times I was struggling with other people about money. And I was doing my best to live the spiritual principles within that, but realized I was not really doing it. I got in another car accident. It was very minor. Basically, this woman that I used to say was an old woman, who's younger than I am now, went through a red light, and I swerved off the road, and I was in a van, and there was this big rock there, and this rock kind of hit the bottom of the car. And it was easy to get off because we didn't even need a tow truck. The police officer came, and we were able to push it off. I did not feel any pain in my body, but the next morning I woke up and my shoulders and lower back were killing me. Not like I got banged, but just so tight. I knew that it was from working so hard for years without taking a vacation. So I was married at the time, so my wife and I decided to go to Vermont to visit another student of the Sufi Sheikh and spend a couple of weeks there for some R&R. When I was there, he suggested I try a polarity therapy treatment, and I did. I didn't really know what it was at the time, but I had a really profound experience. Even though I was 25, my body felt old, and now I laugh about it. But, I wasn't taking care of myself. So during the polarity treatment, I had memories from childhood. I had emotions come up. I was crying and laughing. And when I got off the table, I was almost going to complain to her because it seemed to take so short. She said it was going to be about an hour. When I looked at the clock before I said anything. I was on the table for 3 hours, and I had no sense of time, obviously. When I was done, and I looked way better. I looked in the mirror. I looked like a whole new person. She suggested that I continue getting some more sessions, and she happened to know someone who lived right near where I lived. And this was like, again, things falling into place. Another car accident giving me like a kick in the butt to get in line with these things inside of me that it was easy for me to deny that they existed. And that was the beginning of my studying healing. After my near-death experience, some things did happen. That one was my hands started to become very warm when I touch people. And one was I did retain some of that wisdom and knowing and this connection to, at the time I didn't know what to call, but after talking to these spiritual teachers, I understood that was spirit, that was God. And this was a way to direct that energy. After a number of months, I started getting polarity sessions, and then she started teaching a class. So I took the class, and so I'm really good at this. After a few months, I realized I needed to get out of the construction business. Again, it just happened very magically how I was able to transition from this lucrative job to having my practice that was making enough money to live a pretty good life. So again, these pieces of the puzzle are inside of me, growing regardless of what I'm trying to do. The world is pushing me there. God is pushing me there. And it is nice to be able to be the blessing sometime. And everyone has that blessing in them. So I have and so part of this is to look at the things you don't particularly like about yourself and allow your loving energy to go to them. And I have a quote from The Dynamics for Living by founder of Unity, Charles Fillmore. And love never sees anything wrong in that which it loves. If it did, it would not be pure love. Pure love is without discriminating power. It simply pours itself out upon the object of its affection and takes no account of the results. By doing so, sometimes love casts its pearls before swine, but its power is so great that it transforms all that it touches. So allowing our loving to go into these parts of ourselves that we don't particularly like does just that. It transforms it, makes it a piece of our puzzle, and gives us a lot of energy that we're denying. So this whole puzzle of all these parts of us become the blessing, and you can be the blessing. So now we're going to go into the meditation, and you can get comfortable in the chair and feel yourself sitting in the chair. You can close your eyes if you like. And first, just feel your feet. If they're on the ground, you can feel them touching the ground. If not, you can just feel them where they are. And just allow that energy from your feet to move up your body, feeling your calves, your shins, your knees, your thighs, through your hips and creative center, through your abdominal area, your lower back, up into your chest, through your shoulders, out through your arms, into your hands, your throat, your face, the back of your head, and the top of your head. And first we'll start with any aches and pains in the body or areas of discomfort. And wherever that is, just use your intention and your attention to focus on that and breathe. And allow your loving to come present in that area. Some ways to activate our loving is to think of a beautiful scene in nature, perhaps like what's on your screen right now. Or to think of animals like little puppies or kittens, or even babies. These are things that automatically activate our loving and allow that energy to go to the uncomfortable places or painful places in your body. With each breath, just feel that area relaxing. You can imagine light being there. That could be a clear light or white light or a color. And just trust your intuition to know exactly which is right. Or you can choose your favorite color, and that will work also. Now place your hand on the center of your chest, in your heart center, the center of spiritual loving. And then place your other hand on your belly below your belly button. This is the center of our lower nature, that I like to call the basic nature, because lower implies less than, but it's really just a lower vibration. So many times when we have judgments about ourselves, our basic self is the part that feels it and feels bad and withdraws our energy. So we want to be accepting of this part of us. And it is a very important part of our blessing puzzle. It is where our physical energy comes from. It is where our enthusiasm comes from. And we want to breathe and connect into both where your heart hand is and where your belly hand is, and allow those parts to connect. And once you feel those areas activated a bit more, you can focus on your inner vision and allow on your inner screen for there to come present areas of your life that you would like to change or that you're not that happy with. And you can let these three areas know that it's all right, that it is part of your karmic puzzle, and within there is some energy, there is your blessing, and there are clues to your soul contract. There is a fun affirmation to use, which is, I am loving myself even when I am, and you can fill in the scenario that you're focusing on. So for me, I am loving myself even when I'm feeling nervous about doing this talk. Again, you can ask the energy to come in, the clear energy, the white light, or a color to come in to your inner vision. And then if you want, you can remove your hands from your chest and belly. And just take a big breath and go back into feeling your body, feeling your feet, and focus on your breathing. You can start to come more present into the room where you are, and remember that you are the blessing.